Hi, Fancy McFancy Pants. Yes, I'm here to audition. Here's my music. Okay, thanks. Okay, so the tempo goes like this. Got it? Okay, so where are you starting? Right here. Okay. And then you're going to repeat it like 4 times, and then you're going to come to this part, and then you're going to cut off. You're gonna. Well, okay, it'll be fine. I can't wing it. It'll be fine. It's not that big of a deal. There's only a little tear in it. It's fine. Wow, so unprofessional. Sure, okay. Yep, no problem. Hi, welcome back. I'm Kat, that theater kid, and today I'm going to be talking about working with an accompanist and talking about how you really need to have some sort of music vocabulary or music language to be able to effectively communicate with your accompanist. Disclaimer, I am some random chick on the internet. I'm speaking from experience, education, and personal insight. And we're going to talk about this vocabulary and what each of these things mean and what they look like. So I'm going to give you some examples. Time signature, tempo, rest, repeat, bars or measures, note values, key signature, the grand staff, chord or chords, intro or introduction. Now I'm going to show you an example of all of these things as we go through. So the first one I'm going to hit is a time signature are the 2 little numbers that you see at the top of a piece of music. Most of the time you'll see time signatures that are 3/4 or 4/4. And what that means is the top number tells you how many beats are in a measure. The bottom number tells you the note that is getting the beat. So we'll start with its simplest term, 4/4. It's also known as common time. 4/4 is there are 4 beats to a measure. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And the quarter note, he gets the beat. So if he gets the beat, he gets 1 beat, and that will be 4 quarter notes in the measure. That's a time signature. Now it does get a little bit more complicated with music such as Bernstein, Jason Robert Brown, Sondheim. That's a whole other story for a whole other day. So most of the time signatures you may see are 4/4, 3/4, 2/4. You may occasionally see 6/8. Then the other meters are just going to be more complicated, so we won't go into that. Tempo is how fast or slow a piece is. Usually that tempo is shown at the top of the piece next to the time signature. Some of those parts might be in Italian, but I'll list some here. Bars or measures. You'll hear this a lot when a company is asking for a 32 bar cut or a 16 bar cut. A bar is a unit of measure in music, and it is signified by these 2 little lines. Okay, so note values. Each note is given a value. So the little one that looks like a donut, he's typically 4 beats. He's called a whole note. A whole note gets divided in half of its value, and this is a little tree of note values. When you start getting into the flags, the notes get shorter and shorter. Okay, so a rest is literally just a rest in music, and I'm going to show you what a rest looks like. These also have different values. There's a whole note rest, half note, quarter, eighth, and so on. And they get the exact same values as their note counterparts get. Key signature is a little bit more complicated as it has to do with what key the piano is going to be playing in for you to sing. So this means it's going to depend on how high or low the song is going to be for you. The treble staff is usually the higher notes of the piano or the keyboard, and the bass clef staffs are usually the lower notes of the keyboard. Grand staff is important for pianists because they read music for their right hand and their left hand on the grand staff. There are several types of repeat signs in music. The simplest being just a simple repeat sign, which is a thick bar with 2 dots. This tells you what portion of the music you're going to repeat. The other types of repeat signs are first and second endings. First and second endings are going to have a bracket over the top of a measure with the number 1 or the number 2. So you would sing through the music, then you skip over the first bracket to go to the second bracket. Then we have DSL fine or da capo al fine. There's that Italian. All right, da capo al fine means to repeat back to the start of the piece. And L fine means after repeating back, you play to the fine mark, and the fine mark will literally be labeled by the word fine or fine. Then we have a dies al coda, which is you repeat back to the special sign, and you can see the sign. It's usually a little S with a slash through it and 2 dots. And al coda means that after repeating back, you play to the coda, which is legitimately marked with the word coda. Not complicated at all. A chord is made up between 2 to 7 or 8 notes at one time. And usually you'll hear chords inside of pieces of music. You will never sing a chord, but you will sing a note in that chord. Now we're going to talk about grand pauses. Grand pauses are usually recognized by 2 slashes that happen over the top of a bar of music. Technically, you would pause for as long as necessary. It's also called a pregnant pause, and it would be determined by either the singer or the director, depending on what the composer's reason for that pause was. Then we have a thing called a fermata. A fermata is a little dot with parentheses over the top. It almost looks like an eyeball, a single eyeball. A fermata means you hold the note twice of what its value is. An intro is the measures that happen before you begin singing. Some songs have between 3 and 4 measures of music or an intro before you start your song. You can also use a chord as an entrance. So if you wanted just a chord to be played and then you would start, you can do that as well. Then we have this thing called a rolled chord, which means they start at the lowest note of the chord and roll it up to the highest note in the chord. Now your pitch may be the starting note of that chord, or it may be the last, or it may be somewhere in the middle. So you really need to know where your note is, and you need to be able to hear it well when you do a rolled chord. If you are working towards an audition piece, I highly recommend starting with a bell tone. It'll help give you that 32 bars instead of having those extra 4 bars at the beginning, because they will count those as part of your audition. All right, when you approach an accompanist, you want to have very clear instruction. You want to be kind, obviously introduce yourself. Always tell the pianist or accompanist what your piece is from and the title of it. And that will sort of help them get into the style of the music, especially if they are a very seasoned accompanist. If you have questions about your entrance, or if you have questions about the music in general, you can ask, but be aware that you are on a limited time and that their time is also very precious. If you have a question like, could you play the first couple of bars so I can hear it to make sure the piano's loud enough, or if the piano is too loud, those are things that you can ask, but you're not going into intensive conversation with your accompanist. When you set a tempo, you always want to sing a few bars. It's built into us to want to snap a tempo, especially if you know how to snap, but snapping is very rude. You wouldn't want to be snapped at, right? Pat your shoulder, pat your leg, pat the piano, tap your foot to help you set the tempo, and sing along with it so the accompanist can kind of get into the groove of where you're coming from. Huge pet peeve among many, many accompanists. When you're looking at a piece of music as a pianist, you need to be able to see all the notes. They may be incredible musicians, but they don't want to have to fake notes for you. They may know the piece really well and be able to do it, but don't make those assumptions. When you are copying music for a pianist, you want to make sure you can see every note on that page. A really bad piece of music looks like this. Another big pet peeve for pianists and accompanists is to get what's called a fake book. Fake books are great for singers because you can have a lot of vocal lines inside of a fake book. But the problem is there's nothing for the pianist to play other than your vocal line. This is what a typical vocal line looks like from a fake book. There is absolutely no way that they're going to be able to play that for you. So be aware, fake books are not good things to be bringing in either. Okay, when you bring in a piece of music, you want to make sure, especially if it's for an audition, that your music is set up in an accordion fashion. So when you bring in a piece of music, if it's not in a 3-ring binder, you want to do what's called accordion the music. So you're going to take your music like so, and you're going to take the seams of the paper okay? And you're going to tape them together like this. So you've got just a thin strip of tape right down here. Then you can fold it up in a way that is really easy to spread out along a piano. Now, the only thing I will say about this is if the room is exceptionally breezy, these can fly out. So what I like to do in my own rep book is I will take the very first page of music and I will 3-hole punch that one piece, and then I can still accordion it within my rep book, but then I can just spread it out and it still be attached to my 3-ring binder. Now with 3-ring binders, you don't want to have really heavy, you don't want to have a lot of music in it because the lips of the pianos, especially in New York, the lips of the pianos are old and crusty and broken. And so very likely your 3-ring binder is going to end up in the pianist's lap. Pick a small 3-ring binder that you can use for audition purposes, but keep your good rep book, with you so you can swap out music. So that once you have finished your audition, obviously go back, pick up your music, and thank your accompanist for their help and their time. I hope this has helped you. I hope the visuals have helped you some. Don't forget, like and subscribe. If you have any questions about working with an accompanist or music questions in general, reading sheet music, whatnot, drop a comment and let me know. Have a great one. Keep on singing, keep the drama on stage, and scene.